Medgar Wiley-Evers was an American civil rights activist and soldier who was the NAACP's first field secretary in Mississippi. Evers, a United States Army veteran who had served in World War II, was engaged in efforts to overturn racial segregation at the University of Mississippi. He aimed to end the segregation of public facilities and expand opportunities for African Americans, including the enforcement of voting rights when he was assassinated by Byron de la Beckwith. A college graduate, Evers became active in the civil rights movement in the 1950s. Following the 1954 ruling of the United States Supreme Court in Brown v. Board of Education that segregated public schools were unconstitutional, Evers challenged the segregation of the state-supported Public University of Mississippi. He applied to law school there, as the state had no public law school for African Americans. He also worked for voting rights, economic opportunity, access to public facilities, and other changes in the segregated society. In 1963, Evers was awarded the NAACP Spingarn Medal. Evers was murdered in 1963 at his home in Jackson, Mississippi, now the Medgar and Merle Evers Home National Monument, by Byron de la Beckwith, a member of the White Citizens Council in Jackson. This group was formed in 1954 in Mississippi to resist the integration of schools and civil rights activism. As a veteran, Evers was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. His murder and the resulting trials inspired civil rights protests. His life and death have inspired numerous works of art, music, and film. Although all white juries failed to reach verdicts in the first two trials of de la Beckwith in the 1960s, he was convicted in 1994 based on new evidence. Evers' widow, Merle Evers, became a noted activist in her own right and served as national chair of the NAACP. In 1969, after passage of civil rights legislation and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, Medgar's brother Charles Evers was elected as mayor of Fayette, Mississippi. He was the first African American to be elected mayor of a Mississippi city in the post-Reconstruction era. Evers lived with the constant threat of death. A large white supremacist population and the Ku Klux Klan were present in Jackson and its suburbs. The risk was so high that before his death, Evers and his wife, Merle, had trained their children on what to do in case of a shooting, bombing, or other kind of attack on their lives. Evers, who was regularly followed home by at least 2 FBI cars and a police car, arrived at his home on the morning of his death without an escort. None of his usual protection was present, for reasons unspecified by the FBI or local police. In the early morning of Wednesday, June 12, 1963, just hours after President John F. Kennedy's nationally televised civil rights address, Evers pulled into his driveway after returning from a meeting with NAACP lawyers. His family had worried for his safety that day, and Evers himself had warned his wife that he felt in greater danger than usual. Emerging from his car and carrying NAACP t-shirts that read, "Jim Crow must go," Evers was struck in the back with a bullet fired from an Eddystone Enfield 1917 rifle. The bullet passed through his heart. Initially thrown to the ground by the impact of the shot, Evers rose and staggered 30 feet, 10 meters, before collapsing outside his front door. His wife, Merle, was the first to find him. Evers was taken to the local hospital in Jackson, where he was initially refused entry because of his race.